everyone. Good morning and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That right there is the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This is Nick Wright. We have a great Tuesday show for you today. You guys good? I forgot to ask. I have a little coffee everywhere. It's all over my pen. We had a little accident before the show started. That's the best way to. He needs
Tighten up my little tie, little buddy. Good morning, Cris Carter. How are you doing?
Cigarette guy, let's go.
Cigarette guy.
Let's go. I'm ready.
Oh, there's coffee everywhere.
Let's go.
Antonio Brown's helmet gate has reached a conclusion. It turns out that guy, CC, was right. We'll explain. Tom Brady still
Ready
plans
to report
to
to
play
work,
till
boss.
he's 45, but we are going to start the show with the latest on Dak Prescott. The multi-million-dollar question. How much does Dak Prescott actually want? The Pro Bowl quarterback reportedly turned down Dallas's $30 million per year offer because Dak wants to become the highest paid quarterback in the $40 million per year range, though conflicting reports dispute this. A lot of millions regardless. So, Nick, is there anything Dak Prescott can do to prove he is worth all of this money, whether it is 30 or 40?
Get a lot better is the way he could do it. 40 million is... There have been talks around the league for the last few months that could Patrick Mahomes, in a year or two, become the league's first $40 million a year player? Could he get a 5-year, $200 million contract from the Kansas City Chiefs? And the only reason I bring up Patrick Mahomes is he's the only player that's been bandied about regarding. And all he had to do to have that be a question was set NFL records and win league MVP en route to a 50
But it's
touchdown,
also the
5,000.
timing.
Yes, of course, that he would be with now we see Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers around $35 million per year.
Yeah.
You think in a year the top quarterback would be $37-ish million. In a year or two, could the top quarterback at that age be $40 million? Possibly. So yes, the timing and the high-level production. So for Dak, what he has going for him is the timing. He does not yet have going for him anywhere near the high-level production. So how could he be worth $30 million per year, which is reportedly now by multiple people being reported he turned down? Build on those final 8 games that you saw the best version of Dak that we've seen since his rookie season, and add to that. Not just continue that. Not just continue the production of those last 8 games. Those last 8 games were good. They weren't top 5 quarterback in the league good. He would have to add some explosive plays to it. He would have to decrease some of the time he holds onto the ball that leads to some of those sacks. He would have to add his ability to make some high-level NFL throws. In short, he would have to improve drastically to, in my mind, be worth north of 30 and have to improve an absolutely unrealistic amount to be worth anywhere near 40 when Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and the best in the league are in the mid-30s.
But we should expect the same jump in the quarterback salaries that we've seen over the last 2 years. Salary cap will continue to go up. The revenue, the NFL, the business is very successful. That's why the money is there. Just like 2 years ago, we never thought there'd be someone making $35 million. No, but the truth of the matter is Russell Wilson, and I don't know the exact number, but I guarantee you Russell Wilson asked for $37, $38 million. How you know that? Because they settled on 35. And I know that there was some going back and forth in doing that. So, of course, Aaron Rodgers probably wanted $35 million at the time. All those, Carson Wentz, I guarantee he wanted $35 million before settling to the figure that he got to. So I'm not surprised that the money is there. And if you don't like the quarterbacks, and we're in an era where there's so many guys that can throw, there's so many guys that can put up 4,000-yard seasons, besides winning, that's the really only indicator for Dak as far as is he worth the money. In 3 seasons, only one quarterback has more wins than him in the regular season. That's Tom Brady. He's got 32. So that, to me, would justify wanting the $30 million salary. Right now, I don't like to say that people are overpaid, but if there was someone in the NFL that deserved $40 million, it would be Tom Brady. He would be the only one. But you're going to see in the next 24 months, there's going to be a quarterback that's going to get $40 million because the money is there. It's going to be a bargain to have a guy at $30 million.
So that's interesting. So, yes, he has the second most wins behind Tom Brady. But would you put Dak Prescott in the same category as Russell Wilson, as Aaron Rodgers, maybe even as Carson Wentz as far as talented quarterbacks?
Some people.
Or does that not even matter?
Listen, some people can make the argument for Dak versus Carson Wentz. I've heard the argument. I understand there are some compelling points to it. To me, Dak does not pass the eye test versus Carson Wentz. No one would make the argument of him versus Aaron Rodgers, him versus Russell Wilson, him versus Ben Roethlisberger, him versus Matt Ryan, him versus the other top-paid quarterbacks in football, let alone Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback anyone has ever seen. Like, to me, that is where the Cowboys are playing such a dangerous game, and where, if I were advising them, Dak has potentially given them an escape hatch here. If the Cowboys are offering him right around Carson Wentz money, and he's blanching at that, and he is asking for, even if you shoot for the moon, land in the stars type of thing, he's asking for north of Russell Wilson money, the Cowboys, without going back on their word, could credibly say, we did plan to re-sign Dak Prescott. We did plan to make him one of the 5 highest-paid quarterbacks in football, as we've said. But he is asking for a number we cannot make work right now, just like we feel Zeke is asking for a number we cannot make work right now. And Dak is under contract for $2.1 million this year. The franchise tag next year would be $26 million. You right now, without doing a thing, could have Dak Prescott on your football team for the next 2 years for less than $30 million, and to get at least 32 games of information before you have to make a really tough decision after year 5 about an extension or a second franchise tag. Dak, to me, has opened that door to where if the Cowboys want to walk through it, they can, and it's not reneging on their promises that they have made about extending Dak Prescott.
I doubt if they'll do that right there, because there's just too much risk. Because in that, if you have your franchise quarterback, he can get hurt. And people say, well, he can get hurt with a long-term deal. Yeah, but then you're out searching for another quarterback. I just believe that Dak's going to get the deal signed before the season. Those last 2 weeks of the preseason is typically when these deals come. I know that we're getting rumors that, oh, man, he wants $40 million. I'm sure there's a deal out there to be made, all right? I'm sure that they're going to make that deal before the season starts, Jenna.
No, I was curious how ugly this could get. It seems like it got ugly with Ezekiel Elliott. I wonder if it can get ugly with Dak Prescott as well, none of which the Cowboys factored in at the beginning of the offseason. I
would say this. Dak's already there, and so he's not going to now leave. So it's not going to get ugly to that extent. There's only one quarterback negotiation that I can remember in the last decade or so, if we remove whatever's going on with Tom Brady in New England, that I would say got ugly, and that was Kirk Cousins in Washington. But that team didn't want him. They made that very clear. Like, they kept looking for reasons to move on from him. So I wouldn't expect this to get ugly unless the Cowboys took the route that I actually think they should take, which is let Dak play out this season.
I don't think the Redskins didn't want Kirk Cousins. They just weren't ready to commit to him long term.
Sure.
Because you don't put the franchise tag with the types of dollars that they put in his pocket for 2 years unless you want a guy. Right now, we just can't commit the dollars long term. But in that 2-year window,
he made a bunch of money.
He made a bunch of money.
All right. Well, the Raiders committed some dollars long term to Antonio Brown. Did they make a mistake doing that? We'll let you know why. We're asking next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We're back right after this. Rothys are the everyday flats for life on the go. They're stylish, comfortable, and they go with everything from yoga pants to dresses and skirts. They've quickly become a must-loved, gotta-have-them brand thanks to their wide range of colors and patterns, with new ones launching constantly. And there's a zero break-in period. Since Rothys are crafted using 3D knitting techniques and hand assembly, their seamless design means right out-of-the-box comfort. Best of all, they're made from recycled plastic water bottles. That's right. Over 25 million water bottles have been diverted from landfills to make these gorgeous and sustainable shoes. Another major bonus, they're fully machine washable, so your pair will be fresh and ready every laundry day. Plus, Rothys always come with free shipping and free returns and exchanges. There is no risk and no reason not to try. You'll quickly discover why BuzzFeed called them their forever shoes. Check out all the amazing styles available right now at rothys.com/cadence. Comfort, style, sustainability, these are the shoes you've been waiting for. Head to rothys.com. That's ROTHYS.com/cadence today. Welcome back. We'll get to Antonio Brown in just a second. But first, little minor league baseball action. Justin Turner of the Springfield Cardinals with a great catch. Where'd he go?
Now, this is the thing in baseball. If you catch the ball and touch the ground, that should be a home run.
Home run.
Absolutely.
I was about to say that, and I thought you'd kill me for it. I totally agree. And we don't even know if he actually held the ball the whole time.
All right, next up, internet dunker Isaiah Rivera through the legs, 360 over a human being.
I mean, this guy.
Yeah, these people are out of control now. I'm just going to tell you, these highlight of dunks are a lot better than the dunk contest.
Oh, much better.
This is, I mean, again, a dunk I've never seen before. Over a guy, reverse 360 East Bay.
I just want to see the outtakes, though. I just want to see how many times my man Groen hit dude in the neck.
That one was his fifth
I got to get a little higher.
Five-star class of 2020 guard Josh Christopher putting the defender on a poster at the Drew League right here.
Is at the Drew League. Young LaMelo Ball had a hell of a weekend at the Drew League. A little 10-point comeback in the final minute for his squad. Look at that on two defenders. Hey, man, what's the big fella doing down in the paint not contesting? Just watch number 0, I think it is. Man, either leap or get out the way. Don't.
Well, his buddy was there. He couldn't jump into him.
All right, Ravens can't white out Michael Floyd jumping over the defender to make a nice two-handed grab.
I thought this was going to get snatched.
Michael Floyd, man, he's been kicked around the league.
Yeah.
Baltimore could use another weapon on the outside to give the young quarterback another target. Can Michael Floyd resurrect his career there with the Ravens? I don't think so, man.
Nice effort.
Doesn't have the speed he used to be able to have coming out of Notre Dame.
All right, moving on to Antonio Brown's helmet gate. So over the weekend, AB said he'd retire if he couldn't wear his old helmet. Even filed a grievance with the NFL. Well, yesterday that grievance was denied. So did he retire? Oh, no, quite the opposite. He walked that threat back, fully retracting his ultimatum, tweeting, "While I disagree with the arbitrator's decision, I'm working on getting back to full health and looking forward to rejoining my teammates on the field. I'm excited about this season. Appreciate all the concerns about my feet." All right, CC, you said he wouldn't retire. Have the AB headaches just begun for the Raiders? I mean, we've seen a ton of noise, if you will, already in camp. Season hasn't even started yet.
Well, this is the thing. You only know of a few stories in Pittsburgh. So if you know of a few stories, you know there's more stories than that. Why would the Pittsburgh Steelers trade away a receiver over the last 6 years? 100 catches, 12 touchdowns, over 1,200 yards. Why do you do that? Because you're sick and tired of his mess. You're sick and tired of him coming up with stuff. And then when the playoffs is on the line, he doesn't call anyone, doesn't tell anyone. That right there was, we got to be able to let him go. No, this is just the beginning. When you do something like this and you hear your coach support you, oh, yeah, this is just the beginning for the Raiders. Like, he's supposed to be the face of the franchise, and I can understand the Raiders. They got a different brand that they're marketing to. But it's a team sport. And guys on your team, ultimately, they get tired of it because they're trying to make a living. And in this division, man, it's going to be tough to be able to win games. How do they develop Derek Carr with a wide receiver like him? It's going to be difficult. But this is just the beginning. You're threatening people. You're showing people your bank statements in meetings. Like, how are you going to mentor younger players? And to me, it's a hard deal. And John Gruden, he hadn't put his foot down. And if you allow a wide receiver, Denny Green used to say this, I got an open door policy. All right? If you ever want to talk, you can come to my office and we can talk about everything. But he said, but you wide receivers, no, I can't leave it open. I can only leave it cracked because you guys are being there every day. I need something. I need something. I need my equipment, my money. I need some more targets. And did I mention my money again? No, this is just the beginning. These are all signs that he is going to push the envelope just like any other kid would do until their parents finally crack down and everyone is in agreement. No, in Oakland, they're not in agreement.
I think the point you made about the butterfly effect of John Gruden's stance publicly on this is an important one. Gruden's stance was everything but a deterrent. Gruden, and I understand why he thought he had to do it, but he put his arms around AB very publicly. Very publicly, he defended him on the feet. He said, listen, that was not his fault. That was just an accident for a guy that was trying to get better. And the helmet, he didn't even... I thought at the very least he might no comment the helmet. Like, listen, that's something. He defended AB on the helmet. He's like, this is personal to him. It matters to him. And
everyone's equipment's personal, though.
Of course. And so when you see that, if you're Antonio Brown, not that being excoriated by Gruden would have been a deterrent, but this was obviously the opposite of a deterrent.
Of course.
And the question I would ask for anyone out there that thinks Antonio Brown is about to reverse course, who are the super rich, successful 30-year-olds, 31-year-olds that show increasingly erratic behavior and then out of nowhere all of a sudden start walking the line? They don't exist. Like, when you at this age start upping the ante on erratic or, dare I say, crazy behavior, and at each step of the way you are rewarded. You are rewarded with more money. You are rewarded with getting your way. I understand he didn't get his way with the NFL on this.
Coach.
You are rewarded with public fame and all of this. Why? You almost have to ask, why would Antonio Brown change? It's not like being traded from the Steelers was something he didn't want. Maybe if this was, he had always wanted to be a Steeler, wanted to stay a Steeler, and was shocked they traded him.
No, he asked for it.
No, he demanded it. The owner met with him, was like, hey, can we fix it? Nope, you can't fix it. Nice talk to you, Mr. Rooney. I'm out of here. So he has no reason to change his behavior from his perspective.
In Pittsburgh, it got to the point where the chaos and the pain of having Antonio Brown there wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth the production you got, and it wasn't worth, all the effort he put into. We talk about how he's one of the hardest working guys. At what point does that become the case in Oakland? At what point do they say, maybe we shouldn't have done this, or they start regretting what they did with Antonio Brown? He hasn't even shown anything on the field yet.
I just don't see successful people admitting publicly when they make mistakes. Men typically, they like to come up with some type of excuse. That's what John Gruden's going to do. That's what Mike Mayock is going to do as a general manager. Both of them have put their career basically in the hands of these players that are very, very questionable off the field. No, they're not going to admit it, but the way to be able to see does it work is, are they able to develop Carr as a quarterback? And if they're able to do that, if he's able to develop to be their franchise quarterback, then in certain measures, it is worth it to have AB there. Are they able to keep their fan base engaged until they get up and going in Las Vegas? Then it would be worth that, trading those picks to be able to bring a star, a face to your team. Because I watch Hard Knocks. They don't have a whole bunch of storylines. They don't have a whole bunch of good players. So AB, it's important. And if he can develop the quarterback, and if they can have a face as they transition to Las Vegas, then yes, it would be worth the risk.
There were 2 star receivers traded this offseason. And when we talk about the other one, Odell, one of the reasons I'm so optimistic about him in Cleveland is that's the best quarterback he's had. That's the best team he's been on. It's the best support he's had as far as great defense, another good wide receiver, all of these things. For Antonio Brown, all of that's true, except it's the exact opposite. This is the worst quarterback he's ever been on. This will be the worst team he's ever been on. This will be the worst receiving core he's ever been a part of, the worst support structure around him. And you go from the Steelers organization and that infrastructure with Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert to John Gruden and Mike Mayock, who Mayock is unproven, but we'll see. That does not bode well. That does not bode well for his mental state as far as how much he enjoys the game, how successful he is. When he sees the years you're talking about, 6 straight years, where essentially 1,300 yards if you round up and 100 catches, a stretch that you can put up against anyone catches yards in NFL history. What's that feel like when instead of being 11-5 with 105 catches for 1,400 yards, you're 6-10 with 85 catches for 1,000 yards? How does that land? How does he react to that? That is something that we have never seen with Antonio Brown, and I feel like we're about to this season.
I don't think we're going to get the yardage, but he's not going to win. But I don't believe winning's important to him. That's why going to the Raiders for him was very successful. It was about getting paid. A lot of times people say, man, I am winning. I'm the highest paid. I am winning. I'm one of the highest paid. I am winning if I'm getting this salary. And to me, that was more important to him. I think he's going to get 1,300 yards. I believe him and Carr are that good. And it's the easiest time ever to be able to throw in this league. But Does the quarterback develop, and are they able to transition from Oakland, bad stadium deal, moving to Vegas? If he's the face of the team when they're able to get there, then it was worth the risk.
And is this the last headache that he poses for the Raiders?
No,
Probably not.
Come on, listen. They need a bottle of aspirin bigger than my mug right here.
Take a break. Coming up, is Tom Brady still planning to play till he's 45?
Headaches on the horizon.
First.
Now, if you want to find out what to do, watch the next block. We got a veteran. Let's show you how to do it. Oh, I want to be great. I want to be a great teammate.
With a helmet he doesn't love.
Yeah.
All right, time for us to go viral. Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen were a potent combo in the NFL last season, connecting 113 times for almost 1,400 yards. So now their sons are trying to be like their daddies. Check this out. Kirk's son throws a pass to Thielen's son. It is way too cute.
Oh, that's a little handoff pass. That's awesome.
That's adorable.
Great times at training camp now, where most of the training camps are at the facilities. The Vikings have an amazing facility, so it's very inviting for the players to be around. They have a hotel right across the street. It's immaculate, but this is great stuff. Kids never forget this. Memories for a lifetime.
You've got some really great pictures that I've seen of Duran and Monterey out with you at training
absolutely.
camp.
Yeah.
Out with some of those other greats. That's really cool.
And my daughter still works for the Vikings, so it's great. She was born and raised there. Now she's back up there working third year working up there in Minnesota. So it's a lifetime experience that also she felt like that was what she was called to do later in life. So that's great.
Awesome.
You and I should get our daughters out. Throw a ball or two around. They're the same age.
Absolutely, Jenna. Let's do it.
You know
no
what?
problem.
Neither one
I'm
of them
down
got
with
no
that. I like
athletic.
hanging out with your kids.
I've been checking y'all's kids out. Not athletic. I don't know what happened to the DNA and everything, but the athletic part got left at the hospital.
Time for stories to start your morning. Sorry,
Smart
Harper.
now.
Sorry,
Maybe they'll
Deanna.
negotiate some contracts.
Dak Prescott reportedly turned down Dallas's $30 million per year offer, looking to become the highest paid quarterback in the $40 million per year range, though conflicting reports dispute this. See, is there anything Dak can do to prove that he is worth all this money?
To most people, when you have that type of price tag, it's going to be, wow, he's not an elite thrower of the football. But styles make fights. For the Dallas Cowboys, do they need an elite thrower? Dak Prescott is being groomed. He's worth the $30 million to me, because that is the asking price. In 2 years, $30 million going to be a bargain. So, Dak, get your money.
I'm all for everyone getting their money.
But Dak.
Well, it's not but Dak. That money's going to be spent on football players for the Dallas Cowboys. I think that money can be better spent elsewhere. And if the Cowboys...
I'm sure you would take less money for Fox to be able to sign Jenna and I.
If
there
was a hard cap...
I'm sure you and Danielle...
telling you right now.
I'm sure you and Danielle
Chris
be
Carter.
like, you know
Chris
something.
Carter. If there was a hard cap and they said we need to take a little bit of a haircut to keep Chris Carter 100%, now a little bit of a haircut to keep Jenna, you and I would talk.
Easy.
Maybe I'd take you out to lunch a few times. But I would listen. But we live in different worlds here. We're not in a hard cap business. Fox got all the money in the world. They can pay everybody. The Cowboys are not in that situation. You can't pay Dak $35 million a year. Just can't do it. They will regret it if they do it.
That ain't what they were saying to Shannon when they was negotiating with him.
Go on.
They were saying we got a salary cap.
All right, let's stick in the NFC East before we talk about other people's money. Former Giant Phil Simms is an Eli Manning believer, says the two-time Super Bowl champ is set up to have a very good year. Nick, any chance Eli and the Giants have a bounce-back season?
A defined bounce back. Could they do better than finishing with the record that gets them the 6th pick of the draft? Sure. Maybe they'll get the 8th or the 9th pick of the draft this year. But no, like Eli Manning, this is not... The dead cat bounce isn't coming, to use a stock term. Like this is, he is plummeting down. He's not all of a sudden going to bounce back up. We know the trajectory of Eli Manning's career, and to expect different, especially given who he's going to be throwing to, which I think Cris has a workout with them later this week. I would imagine that's not going to happen.
They got an elite defense. I don't think so. They got an elite wide receiving core. No, they got one thing elite, that's in their running back. So if I'm going to quarterbacks, I ain't even going to Phil Simms no more. I'm going to Chris Simms, man. He'll break that thing down. He'll tell you, man, Eli, bro.
does a good job.
Oh, yeah, he's doing a good job covering the NFL. Phil kind of taking care of the
Family
Giants.
business?
Yeah. A little company man comment.
All right, let's move on to the Panthers. With a healthy Cam Newton, second-year wideout DJ Moore thinks if the Panthers' offense is, quote, hitting on all cylinders, it's going to be scary. So, can Carolina dethrone the Saints in the NFC South?
Well, they got to get back to being physical. I do believe that the Carolina Panthers are going to shock people this year. Every year we see a team that comes from mediocre to back into the playoffs. I believe Carolina is that team. But DJ Moore, he's got to develop to be the #1 target. I like their tight end. He's always been effective. He can still run. It's the other things. Can they get a lot of yards after the catch? Because McCaffrey coming out of the backfield, he will be special. But DJ Moore and my guy from Ohio State, 2 years into development, Curtis Samuel, can they be a #1 go-to and a #2 receiver? That will determine how Carolina does, because I believe their defense is going to be nasty.
Man, that Gerald McCoy addition's huge. I think Carolina does bounce back to the playoffs. They weren't a bad team last year, the first half of the year. And so what happened? Cam got hurt, and it totally derailed everything they were trying to do. This was a team that was 5-2 when they were fully functional last year. I think their defense got better with the addition of Gerald McCoy. So, yes, I think I'm not going to pick them to beat the Saints in the division, but if any team does, I think they have the best chance more than Atlanta and, of course, Tampa.
But a note, Jenna, you're right. Watch Cam under duress. Can he keep the new throwing fundamentals that you're concerned about? Once they start rushing him, does he go back to his old throwing motion?
All right, moving on to the Seahawks now. Russell Wilson sat out the preseason opener for the first time in his career last week. Luckily, we will get to see the $140 million quarterback in action this week, with Wilson in line to play against the Vikings Sunday, 8 Eastern on Fox. Shameless plug. See, are people sleeping on Russell Wilson and the Seahawks this season?
No, I think we never have the subject, is Russell Wilson worth the money?
Right.
No.
Like when they signed him, we never had that. It's Russell Wilson. It's Russ. Now, the things we talked about this since Russ has gotten married. Man, how suave he is, how debonair. I mean, his voice has changed.
That's a good word.
I mean, some of his interviews and everything are
a little more swag.
a little more edgy and everything. But no, this is a great test. Week number 2 and 3 are the 2 most important weeks in training camp, because you're going to start getting a real test, #1s, your #1s going against someone else's #1s. In Minnesota, we know they have elite players at all 3 levels of their defense. It's a great test. They're very, very physical. So this is a good challenge for Russ. He should be wanting to play, but without Doug Baldwin. How do they move forward in their receiving core? Who's going to be his #1 threat down the field? To me, their wide receivers, will they be able to support how good Russell Wilson is? That's the big question going into the 19 season.
And they're probably banking a lot, maybe banking a little too much on the workout freak DK Metcalf, who looks amazing in certain combine drills, not so much amazing when he is asked to do things like change direction, stop, and start. But, yeah, it's going to be a lot of Russell Wilson do some magical things, and I'm such a believer in Russell Wilson. I think he's going to do those magical things. You know they're going to have, at the very least, a good defense, as they have every year under Pete Carroll. And with Bobby Wagner there, that defense is almost impossible for them to fall off entirely. I think this team's going to win that division. I think that Arizona's obviously not ready. I'm not a buyer in San Francisco and Jimmy Garoppolo and that Kyle Shanahan-John Lynch combo. We haven't seen anything from them. And the Rams, to me, unless Todd Gurley, everything's lies, the Rams, without a fully functional Todd Gurley, are poised to take a massive step backwards. The Seahawks, in a down year for them, went to the playoffs last year. And a down year for them, I felt, could have beaten Dallas in that playoff game if they would have been a little more aggressive with the play calling. They are, since Russell Wilson's been there, their 2 worst years are 9-7 and miss the playoffs on the final day of the season, and make the playoffs last year at 10-6. So if you think I guess it depends on what the public sentiment on it all is, if people are sleeping on them or not.
But that's what I asked you this morning. Ready? You walked in and I said, how come no one's talking about the Seahawks? I did. Why is that? We saw how much money they gave Russell Wilson. They clearly think they're primed to have a good year this year, but I feel like people just aren't talking about it.
Yeah, I don't know where Nick's getting that, how they're going to win that division, because they're not talented. Their wide receiving core, DK Metcalf, he's not ready to be a wide receiver. Who's going to be their #1 guy? Their tight end, is he going to be a part of the offense? You know they're going to try to run the ball, jam it down people's throat. Their offensive line is still not one of the top 15 offensive line, and their secondary. So to me, no, Russell is good enough to get them at 8-8 with some magic. Can they get to 10 wins? I don't think so. This is the least talented roster that they've had since Pete Carroll and them have been there the last 6 years.
You think it's less talented than the last year's?
Where did they add a bunch of talent?
I understand that they don't have Doug Baldwin. I get that part.
Oh, they don't have Doug Baldwin, and they don't have their safety, Earl Thomas.
But they didn't have Earl Thomas last year either, for the most part. I mean, he broke his leg very early in the season. And was
yeah,
out.
but you still have to account. They do not have someone to play all-pro safety. They don't have that. They don't have Doug Baldwin, and they don't have the voices. Man, Earl was a great leader. Doug Baldwin was a great leader. They don't have that anymore. So to me, this roster is absent of talent. They got a great general manager. They do a great job as a front office. And Pete Carroll, I can't accredit Pete Carroll to win 10 games, not with that roster.
Well, and so as far as the wide receiving core goes, they're obviously going to be relying a ton on Tyler Lockett, who last year Russell did have a perfect quarterback rating when targeting Tyler Lockett.
As you told me. Oh, he's going to get worse this year.
Oh, of course. No. I was about to say, he's not going to assume that number one role, because that is not what he's supposed to do, even if on the depth chart he's the most proven of the wide receivers. They have questions there. I get that. But for me, Seattle's down year was the last 2 years. And they, despite pairing off that talent, despite trying to rebuild the offensive line, they still won 19 games over the last 2 years and made the playoffs last season. I think they will be better this year.
That's because their culture. But Russell Wilson, of all the superstar quarterbacks, he is the least supported as far as skilled guys. Offensive line, running backs, and wide receivers. He's the least supported of them. So, Nick over here, they're going to win the division. Okay. That caught me by surprise.
There's another quarterback who's not that supported with talent around him, and that's Tom Brady. The 42-year-old quarterback now begins his quest for a 7th Super Bowl ring. And while you let that sink in, keep this in mind. Brady's set to become a free agent at the end of the season, even put his Boston area home on the market. So all signs pointing to this perhaps being Tom's last season with the Patriots. But Brady said, hold on, don't read into my house sale, and let's just focus on football.
If anything, the Patriots have taught me, it's, being in the present and not resting on what's happened in the past, and certainly not worrying about what's happening in the future. I'm excited to get out there and play this year and do what I hope to do for this team, which is be a great leader, be a great example, be a great player. And then beyond that, it's not really – there's just too much work to be done between now and next season. So there's no point really worrying about it. That's how I feel.
CC, we asked what reasonable expectations are for Tom Brady at age 40. Then last year I asked you what are expectations for Tom at 41. I have to ask again – Tom Brady at age 42, what do you expect to see out of him this year?
I expect to see a version of what we saw last year, especially at the end of the season. The Patriots developed into, we're going to be a physical football team. We're going to play to our defense. We're going to eat up the clock, a lot like football that was played that he learned from Bill Parcells in the 80s, football that he has played before. And I would say maybe their first 3 Super Bowl wins, this was the style of team that they had. I believe their defense will be an elite defense. They will be top 5 in scoring. I believe their secondary, to me, is the most dependable, the best secondary that we have in the NFL. So they'll play to that. Even though Tom Brady trying to get his 7th ring, to me, them are Kansas City. They have to be the favorite in the AFC based on what they have done. And when they haven't had anything and you didn't expect anything, you know at the minimum they're going to win 11, 12 games. Last year, they weren't able to have home field advantage. It set up perfect for Kansas City. Everything went through Kansas City, and they went there and got the job done. So out of respect for Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, you have to realize that this is going to be a defensive team, very, very physical, leaning on Sony Michel and the running backs because they don't have a tight end. They don't have a wide receiver right now that can play outside the numbers that has Brady's trust. So that's what you expect, the physicality to be able to come out in the Pats this year.
And we always say, when's the time to get the Patriots? First month and a half of the season, with what Belichick calls it the extended training camp. They have a gift from the scheduling gods this year, if that is the case, which is, yes, they play Pittsburgh the opening night of the season. Not the opening night, but the opening weekend, the Sunday night football game against Pittsburgh. And then it's Miami, the Jets, the Bills, Washington, the Giants, the Jets again. So while they're working things out,
Yeah.
they play teams either with a rookie quarterback, teams with a question at quarterback, teams with a new quarterback. And so the Belichick defense on its own should help them start out 5-1.
One thing the scheduling gods have been on their favor because they play in the AFC East. It sucks.
Yes.
So when you're playing those teams twice a year, no matter when you play them, September, I've been doing this so long with the Patriots, been like, wow.
They got an easy schedule again, it looks like.
Well, when you look at their division,
right.
when you can put 6 games in there that most of those teams aren't going to be 500, it makes the schedule so much easier than the other divisional winners.
Right. When you play in the AFC East and you don't have to play the Patriots, when those teams continually recycle coach and quarterback because they don't have a coach or quarterback that can beat Tom Brady and Belichick, it's almost a built-in advantage that they've built in for themselves. The point I'm making is if you were going to for the Patriots, we've seen how important the bye is. Last year, they were able to get a bye even though they only won 11 games. One year, they won 11 games and missed the playoffs entirely the year Tom Brady got hurt. Last year, they won 11 games and got a bye in the first round of the playoffs. While they are figuring out how good can N'Keal Harry be, what is his learning curve, who is replacing Rob Gronkowski, while they are figuring those things out, they have teams on their schedule that I think their defense can handle almost on its own. And what do I expect from Brady? I expect Brady's numbers to once again go down slightly. And I expect Brady in the biggest spots to be as good as any quarterback in football. That's what we saw last year. Last year was his worst statistical year by any measure in 6 seasons. But when they had to have a play against Kansas City, he made 3 in a row. When they had to have one huge throw in the Super Bowl where no one could score a touchdown, he found Gronk down the seam. Like, when he still has the ability to channel those moments of greatness, even though it's surrounded by moments of just very goodness instead of the greatness we're accustomed to.
And that's my concern because he doesn't have trust. When Brady gets in big moments, he only throws the ball to people that he trusts, even if they're covered. Gronk in retirement. Edelman can only do so much in the slot. If I'm any defense, all I'm doing is double teaming Edelman. I put a bracket on him, inside, outside coverage, because he is not a vertical threat, and I forced him to throw the ball someone opposite of Edelman, which they're going to have to prove it to me. And they don't have anyone outside. And I just believe that Tom, in those situations, that's where you will see. It won't be age. It will be lack of talent, lack of separation, lack of playmakers.
Well, you saw he started to have a little trust with Josh Gordon towards the end of the season last year. You wonder if the Patriots are really hoping they can push that along and get him back out on the field.
I think that shows the desperate straits they are in from that positional grouping standpoint. That, to Chris's point, Brady likes guys with trust. And one of the only guys with trust available is a guy who's been banished from the league a couple times, who played 10 games with them last year, but at least he developed some rapport. That's where they're going at this point. Now that Gronk is retired, now that they only have Edelman of that core.
We've had 2 situations this offseason that we've questioned. Wow, are they allowing Gronk to retire and then they're waiting on him in November? It's the most unpatriot thing that I've ever heard. And waiting on a guy to get out of rehab that he has been in a handful of times unsuccessfully and been suspended a handful of times unsuccessfully, to be waiting on him to be their #1 receiver threat. To me, it's unpatriot. It's not the Patriot way, but they're so bad at wide receiver that will be one of the viable answers as they move forward.
I saw Rob Gronkowski on Instagram yesterday. I kid you not, he looks thinner than Nick at this point. No offense to you. You're just an Adonis of muscle over here, but I'm just saying he doesn't look like he's
he's not playing this year. Chris is right about that.
Take a break. Coming up is
we finally gotten off of that one. Okay,
next
that's
contract going to cripple the Cowboys. That's ahead on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, we're joined by the dapper, well-dressed former Pro Bowl linebacker, Bart Scott.
What'd it do?
Did I do something to my hair?
You got some highlights of touch-ups. It's looking good today.
Well, between the two of you guys, I get more attention here than I get anywhere else over the course of my day, and I mean you two. Well, Nick just realized I've been sitting next to you right here. You said that our daughters can't.
No, I said none of the above.
Compatible.
I said none of the above. I just don't want to hang out with you outside of work. I'd love for our kids to play together. When the Eagles gave Carson Wentz $128 million extension this offseason, Jenna, you take it from here.
I will. It appeared they were all in on their franchise quarterback. We are happy to have you here, Bart. That despite the fact that Wentz has been plagued with injuries the last 2 seasons. That despite the fact that he had all of 0 playoff appearances, but Carson Wentz pays no mind to all of that, says expectations are sky high, heading into this, his 4th season.
It is what we expect around here. You know, it's the culture that we have. It's the expectations of this city and this fan base. Everybody knows that. But this culture of that coach sets first and then the leaders on this team, like, we fully expect to be playing late into the season. And it starts right here in training camp. And obviously on the personal side, like you said, I mean, I'm chomping at the bit to get my opportunity to play into January and everything as well.
Bart, there's a lot of optimism around this Eagles team on both sides of the ball. If there is a question, maybe it's on Carson Wentz and his health and durability. What has to happen for the Eagles to make a Super Bowl run this season?
Well, for them to make a Super Bowl run, this is the most talented roster, or one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. But last year it was missing that thump. You know, they were able to get ahead in games. They brought Deshaun Jackson back. It's going to stretch the field. It's going to make sure the safety had to stay high. They went out and got Malik Jackson. They have tremendous depth on the defensive side of the ball, bringing back Vinny Curry, who couldn't be successful in Tampa, but now they understand how to use him as a situational pass rusher. But I think the addition of Miles Sanders, Darren Sproles coming back, now they have some thump behind there, because what happens is when you get ahead of games, you can't always depend on Carson Wentz to continue to try and throw the football. You have to be able to take the air out of the football. And you think about what Jed Jahi, really gave them. You think about what LeGarrette Blount gave them that physicality in between the tackles with one of the best offensive lines in the game. So once you get up by 2 scores with this defense can pin their ears back, you have to be able to take the air out of the game and limit the possessions once you get up 2 scores. And I think if they continue to stick to that recipe that they had, and I know that we have a motivated Carson Wentz, because, you know, even though he's won a Super Bowl, he felt like he wasn't part of the run because he wasn't the quarterback under center. And the elephant in the room was Nick Foles, and they still could have kept Nick Foles. They decided to move on and say, listen, these are the keys to the car, and we go as you go, Carson Wentz. So he has that chip on the shoulder. So I have a talented roster with a quarterback that has a chip on the shoulder. I think that's going to have a tremendous season.
And you mentioned Miles Sanders and Darren Sproles, and I'll add another name, Jordan Howard, a player that I didn't think Chicago should have let go, who I think will be there between the tackles runner. That's what he did for Chicago with Tariq Cohen doing more of the lightning as far as the Thunder and Lightning combo. For the Eagles to live up to what are very lofty expectations for the second straight season, because they had very high expectations last year. When you win a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, that's the expectations you're going to have. Yes, your first point is the most important one. Carson Wentz got to play 16 games, or at least very close. He, at the very least, has to finish the season healthy, even if he gets dinged for a game or two during the year. The last 2 years, he's not been able to finish the season healthy. I think an instant or near instant rapport with Deshaun Jackson will give the offense an extra element that they have not had since Wentz has been there. And then on defense, when this team was at its best, Cris would always say it, their big people were better than your big people. Yes, that was their offensive line, and they still have a great offensive line. Jason Kelce is fantastic. The right tackle, Lane Johnson's one of the best in the business. And we know Jason Peters, when healthy, I mean, he's a future Hall of Fame potential caliber player. But that D-line, no Michael Bennett. What they do is they, in the draft, they take Josh Sweat. I know he's a mid-round pick, but, man, he seems to have some freaky ability as far as coming off the edge. You mentioned bring back Vinny Curry. We know how good Fletcher Cox is. They bring in Malik Jackson to play alongside him. These are all moves that should make what was their strength, their Super Bowl winning season, their strength once again, which is defensive line rotation, getting after the quarterback, because I do think there are legitimate questions about the back half of the defense. I think the defensive line's excellent. The linebacking core and secondary, you could pick apart. But those are the things that have to happen for this Eagles team to live up to the expectations a lot of people have for them, which is win that division, be in contention for the #1 seed in the NFC, and to get back to a Super Bowl.
Cece, we talk a lot about the same thing Bart said, that this is, some say, one of the most complete teams. But yet, what's the identity of the Philadelphia Eagles come into this season? It seems like they're very good at all different positions, but who are they really? Where are they going to shine?
Wow, that's a good question there. I think their identity has to be in their personnel. Because top to bottom, Howie Roseman, when you talk to people around the league, Howie Roseman is one of the best. And he has earned that right. After taking a back seat when Chip Kelly was there, they thought he was useless. Now that he regained his power, you can see that the way this roster is built, top to bottom, they have an emphasis on getting to the quarterback and protecting the quarterback. And you think their offensive line is one of the best in the business. They went out and fortified that, drafted the kid Dillard in the
first round, traded up to get him.
So now they have a competent backup, or maybe move one of those tackles into guard to even fortify the middle of that line. So I would say their identity is, man, they got a good roster, and what is Carson Wentz's potential? If they're going to have Super Bowl aspiration, Carson Wentz has to live up to being the first pick in the draft. Legitimate question on the secondary, as far as their corners, will their cornerbacks be stable enough? The way they were in their Super Bowl run, their secondary played fabulous as the season went on. Yeah. Middle linebacker Zach Brown, watch him coming over from Washington, speed guy, can cover guys out of the backfield, and I believe also he has that type of attitude. He hadn't played in a lot of primetime games, but I know him from his days when he transitioned from college to the pros. I think he fits into that Eagles culture, but ultimately it's about the guy they gave the big money to. Carson Wentz, his ability to be able to orchestrate Philadelphia, and can he stay healthy? Because I believe the weapons around him are the best that he's had since he's been there. But they need to give him some easy stuff. Yeah. Third downs. You don't have to throw the ball all the time. Let's put some thump in there with Jordan Howard. Also Sproles coming out of the backfield. And every once in a while, I'm going to throw the ball to the guy in the history of the NFL that's been better than anyone else. That's Deshaun Jackson. Excuse me. How many of those 60-yard touchdowns can they create, which make it easy for Carson? You can't always have 8, 10, 12-play drives. So let's get him some easy stuff as he goes into, to me, which I should be his prime, which I don't believe that he's reached yet, Bart.
Yeah, you talk about those easy throws as well, and the easiest throws for quarterbacks are up those seams, right? So now you're going to be able, with the addition of Deshaun Jackson, that's going to take the top off the defense, draw the safety. And who's going to eat the most? Zach Ertz, who's the biggest mismatch, maybe the best pass-catching, receiving, or definitely top 5 in the league. But now Nelson Aguilar is able to go back to his natural position, slot, where he can be off the ball, where now you can't jam him off the line because now he's going to have a free release. I think it's going to open everything up. This roster is balanced, it has depth, and it can sustain injuries. You know, and you talk about the secondary. The secondary played a lot better in the playoffs. You know, they were giving up deep balls early in the game. You know, early in the season. But how do you do that? If you can't have elite defensive backs, you have to have pass rush, because now that allows you to keep too deep, and now you can make sure that you have help for everybody.
And one other point, you guys both mentioned Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman and the Eagles front office is quietly sitting there saying, Zeke, stay firm, man. You deserve to be the highest paid running back in the league. They look at that. They look at that division. Washington is figuring out who their quarterback the future is going to be. The Giants are figuring out whatever the hell they're figuring out.
Daniel Jones is great.
Right. They got okay. They have one team that could compete with them in this division. It's Dallas Cowboys, and right now their best player is not in the United States of America. So right now they are hoping that stays the case for as long as possible.
All right, Bart, stick around. Coming up, does 42-year-old Tom Brady have enough in the tank for another Super Bowl run? That's next. First things first. Back here, Bart Scott, we're talking Antonio Brown. We're talking Helmetgate. Over the weekend, AB said he'd retire if he couldn't wear his old helmet. Even filed a grievance with the NFL. Well, yesterday, that grievance was denied. So did he retire, Bart? Did he? He did not. He walked that threat back, fully retracting his ultimatum. He even tweeted, while I disagree with the arbitrator's decision, I'm working on getting back to full health, and I'm looking forward to rejoining my teammates on the field. I'm excited about this season. Appreciate all the concerns about my feet. Bart, have the AB headaches just begun for the Oakland Raiders?
I think he's a bit of a diva, but listen, you know, we're there to cover everything that he says right now. He's the most interesting thing about the Oakland Raiders. Yeah, they're the most interesting. He's the most interesting thing about the Oakland Raiders. And I don't have any issues with him trying to figure out, hey, with my helmet. I understand that. I've been through that before, the old chin strap rule where you had to put 2 chin straps on. And, you know, my helmet actually later in my career was, if I would have played another year, it was outlawed. I think that they maybe should. The better that these helmets get and the heavier they get, the more confidence that players get, and I think they lead with their helmet because they trust the equipment so well. I feel like if their helmets were worse, guys would take their head out of the tackles. But I understand he's had tremendous success, and there's going to be adjustment. He's got to figure out, you know, the right balance, how he likes to look through it, how he likes to put it on his chin and things of that sort. But, I mean, that's just AB being AB, and it comes with the territory. You know, I played with players that was a bit of divas and attention seekers. The question for me is, can he produce? And what I'm more concerned with is his feet, not his helmet and his equipment that he's playing with right now.
Right, you said he's a bit of a diva. I would say that's a bit of an understatement. I think Antonio Brown has exhibited over the last 18 to 24 months the top end of the spectrum of erratic. Diva, I think, is a kind way to put it. Diva is not inherently a bad thing. What Antonio Brown has done repeatedly is damaging to his team, I would argue to his own personal success, to his career, and he's paid very little, if any, penalties for it. Cris made the point earlier, Antonio's focus was on getting paid. He forced his way out of Pittsburgh, and he got paid because of it. He got $30 million of guaranteed money that the Steelers were not going to give him, that he got by forcing his way out of Pittsburgh. How did he do that? Well, let the relationship sour with the quarterback. Some of that obviously was also on the quarterback, but then he no-showed, no-called on a must-win game when they were still alive for the playoffs. And then since then, in a 10-day stretch, he showed up for work in a hot air balloon, then couldn't work because his feet were frostbitten, and then threatened to quit work because he couldn't wear the uniform he wanted to wear, for lack of a better term. That's crazy. It's just crazy behavior. And so rich, successful people, famous in particular, at that age don't all of a sudden reverse course. He's not all of a sudden going to become Larry Fitzgerald. No, of course not. And if anything, he's even more emboldened, even though the NFL finally told him no on this, or they were finally someone that told him no. His coach put his arms around him. The Raiders fans are putting their arms around him. They just want him to produce. To Bart's point, why would he change his behavior when his behavior is worked out by his mind the exact way he wanted to? Didn't want to be in Pittsburgh anymore? He's not anymore. He had the owner meet with him on his terms. The owner flew to him to meet with him. Appreciate it, Mr. Rooney. Nope, I don't want to be here anymore. So, no, I think AB is a great player, and I think he's the most talented player on the Raiders, but I don't think that he is going to change who he is or who he has become. I think we'd be crazy to think he is going to.
I'm just here to explain Bart's answer. And there's a reason why Bart gave you the answer that he did. Because 70% of the players in the locker room, they don't care, just like Bart. I don't care, man. I'm here for the work. I'm here to get paid. I'm making more money than I could ever dream of. You're going to either play ball, because I'm going to be here. I'm not involved in that, but I don't care. Another reason is because he's had teammates like that. In every NFL locker rooms, there's a certain amount of expectations, entitlement, diva-ness, and it's not always at the wide receiver. So Bart has seen this. But Bart also, the reason why it's accepting is the reason why Mike Tomlin accepted it. As long as you're one of the best at your position, we're willing to accept that behavior because we know it's an NFL locker room. So that's where Bart is coming from. To me, when you're transitioning from one team to the next, I would expect the opposite. Juju Schuster flamed him on the way out of town. So what type of mentor is he going to be to the younger guys? He's not. He's not. It's all about AB. It's all about his brand. It's all about Instagram. It's all about likes. It's not about being one of the best receivers that's ever played the game. It's not about putting together a 6-year window that's like one other receiver in NFL history, and that's Jerry Rice. No, AB has switched. So for me, you won't hear me on TV bragging about he's the hardest worker in the building, because that was my excuse for him before. Now it should be about other things. And with the Raiders, their logo has been just win, baby. To him, it's not about winning anymore. It's all about himself and his own personal brand, and it will hurt the Raiders. And this is just the beginning, Bart.
It also feels like, Bart, though, it's the perfect recipe to butt heads with a guy like John Gruden, who seemingly doesn't have an ounce of patience for this type of thing.
I think
they're the same person. You know, they're both alpha males. They're both high maintenance. You can make the same argument about John Gruden. That's why I think
I don't know what you consider your definition of an alpha male, and I don't know what John Gruden has done that would warrant whatever your definition is.
I mean, for me,
because for me, it's a bunch of BS.
Well, for me, it's a guy that, you know, understands when they have leverage, you know, and I think that John Gruden understands he has leverage, getting Reggie McKenzie out there, making sure that he has nobody there more powerful than him. And you look on the player side, Antonio Brown, there's no player more powerful than him because of the contract, because of the financial security that they have. But I think when you look at Antonio Brown, I'm not concerned with how big of a diva he is, because through his own selfishness, the entire team can continue to thrive. You hear about the environment in which when he's out on the football field, he makes everybody better because he comes and he brings it every day. Some of the same things you can say about Odell Beckham. He's a guy that's performed at a high level. Double team, triple team, it don't matter. He's going to show up. I can't really hold this against him as far as his feet and not being available right now because, we've all, tried to do different things and try and improve ourselves and go through technology. The fact that he didn't have the proper, protection for his footwear isn't his fault. He was trying to do something to make himself recover to be a better football player. But what he's got to do, he's got to take some of those young guys underneath his wing.
That's
He's
the
got to
problem.
start to develop the guys around him.
That's the concern, right? Is that I would imagine if you are on the cusp of being a Super Bowl champion, if you're on the cusp of being a great team, and you have a really strong locker room with really strong veterans, with an established coach, quarterback, you bring in AB, and it's like, listen, we know we brought in a guy who's a little erratic. He's going to be awesome on Sundays. We're going to deal with the other stuff, and we're not asking him to mentor guys. They are in the opposite position. They are trying to position themselves, not even for this season that hasn't even started yet, for next season. They're trying to figure out if Carr is going to be their quarterback once they get to Vegas. They're trying to figure out which of these young players. They got a bunch of first-round picks coming through the door this year and next year because they traded away those players to get first-round picks. Part of Antonio Brown's job, in theory, would be to show the young receivers how you conduct yourself as a professional because that's how you're going to help the Raiders long-term more so than this year.
They made interesting choices trying to do this between incognito and bringing Perfect as model citizens in that locker room.
But I don't care, who you are as a person, right? When you're trying to show me how to be a professional, I want to see how you look at film. I want to see how you break down defensive backs. I don't care how the method you do it in. I want to watch you work because a lot of guys talk good.
But during the film session, he's checking the Chase app, seeing how rich he is, and he's on Instagram.
Listen, you don't get that. You don't get that good unless you put in the work on the field and in the classroom.
Let me tell you something, man. I played that position. It's the most selfish position in all of sports. And you can be selfish, you can be a diva, and still be great. We have examples of them one after one, decade after decade. So I don't believe you in that. And making the excuse that, something, just because he's a hard worker. Man, you're in a team sport. He tweeted, me and my team, I'm getting back with my teammates. It's about the team. But this has been about him. In Pittsburgh, at the end, it became about him. Facebook Live, that was about him. The stuff with Ben Roethlisberger, it was the stuff about him. We need to stop making excuses. He's not a 24-year-old, something? Oh, it's his second or third year. No, dude is grown. Dude is in the league, and he's being irresponsible with his stardom. And for me to sit here and act like I'm going to tolerate it, no, Bart. And in the locker room, it's disruptive. You create a culture with the guys you pay. You don't bring in no Vontaze Burfict talking about you trying to be a mentor. You don't bring in no Richie Incognito talking about you getting ready to mentor someone. You don't, Bart.
But they're not all choir boys. They're not all choir boys. I don't need choir boys. I need some guys with some skin in the game, some felonies. I need some bad guys, right?
But do you need the top 3 draft picks for crazy?
No, stop this.
In the league.
That used to win in the league. It's not winning anymore, Bart. All right? Look what the winning model is. It's not guys getting arrested off the field. So, that used to work. There used to be a day. You used to be able to have guys like that. But it doesn't work anymore. You're not winning.
Philly
the careers
won with
are not
Blunt, right? They won with LeGarrette Blunt. But you can win with guys that
you
may
can
not
win when you go to New
England.
That's the only team transforming people because the dudes don't act crazy. You know something? They act straight as soon as they walk through the door because they ain't having it because they know Belichick is not putting up with it in the locker room. They not putting up with it. Ain't no Instagram live in the dang on Patriots locker room.
Yeah, but for me, that whole hiccup was about him trying to brand and market himself, and he made a bad decision.
Come on, man. You're making money. You're making almost $20 million.
Yeah.
You branding enough. Stop, Bart. Stop. Go, Jenna.
We all try to make that all
Just stop, man.
We're going to take a break.
Stop. You're making excuses, man.
Bart, we'll see you a little bit later coming up.
It's ridiculous.
Come on back with this segment. I need to start taking stuff to CC. Next pointing all his hands and gyrations all over the place.
We'll get to Cam Newton in just a second, but first, some minor league baseball. Justin Turner of the Springfield Cardinals making a great catch, takes him over the wall.
That's a home run. Change the rule, Manfred.
No. Come on.
Because
why make
you got to keep your body
in
this field of play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a touchdown. Like, once you go on the other side and you touch the ground, you should be out.
And that ended the game, I'm told.
All right, how about this? You can tell me this one shouldn't count. Next up,
Well, it
internet
didn't
dunker
count.
Isaiah Rivera. Boy, with you, nothing counts.
I mean,
Through the legs.
I know this might shock you, Jenna.
Little
That
East
would be
Bay
an odd
action.
defensive stance. This was not in a game. This was in a
Defense
warm-up.
was terrible on this play.
I've seen Nick Wright play basketball. He plays defense
Oh,
like
how
that.
dare you? I'm a great defensive player. Check. Respect
Check
it
what?
or check it.
Check
As
what?
Ste-
Check
as
what
Steven
video?
Jackson would
What
say.
was it?
Finally.
Last 2 times you played basketball, you left
Finally,
bleeding.
I
we got
did
some
because of
real
that hard
action.
defense, man.
Five-star class of 2020 guard Josh Christopher. This
Oh,
one counted.
man, I miss going to the Drew League when we were in L.A. I'm told this young man dropped a nice little 40 and 10 on him during this game. But by the way, the tall white fella right there, either get out the way or contest. You can't just let the other guy go contest. He beats you off the dribble, and then you just watch someone else contest. Oh, wait. Oh, what do I do? Okay, I'll just watch. Come on, man. You got your friend posterized.
You break down the film like to the white guy, like you're not white.
No, I was
white guy.
pointing him out. I was pointing him out. I didn't know his number. I didn't know
I
how
got
else to just. There was only one white fella on the court. It was an easy way to differentiate.
I got you.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
I
Ravens
don't appreciate you
camp.
talking about my race like that, Chris.
Wideout Michael Floyd jumping over the defender to make a nice two-handed grab, guys. Break this down.
Michael Floyd trying to resurrect his career there. Lost his burst down the field. He used to be a burner when he came into the league out of Notre Dame. Had some off-the-field issues. Has gotten cut the last several years by a number of teams. Can he resurrect his career there with Baltimore? I don't think so.
All right, let's talk some Carolina Panthers. Good news for Carolina. Cam Newton looking healthy, showcasing a new throwing motion after shoulder surgery. Christian McCaffrey coming off a career year, second-year wideout. DJ Moore thinks if their offense is, quote, hitting on all cylinders, it's going to be scary. Bad news, though, still playing the NFC South.
Oof.
So, Nick, can the Panthers dethrone the Saints in that division?
Oh, I want to say yes so badly.
You've wanted
Because
to
I
say
really
yes for
think the
years.
Panthers are going to be good. And last year, I think they were good until Cam got his shoulder wrecked. And we'd look at that season differently last year if the J.J. Watt hit had just not came out for the year. They were 5-2. I'm sorry, T.J. Watt. Thank you.
Hit him like J.J.
Yeah, absolutely right. J.J.'s younger brother. If the T.J. Watt hit had just not came out for the year, and then they lose 7 straight games, like, oh, this was a really promising team. Quarterback got hurt.
Yes.
But instead, Cam played through it. And we didn't really get the extent of the injury till after the season. So it's like, wow, really disappointing year for Carolina. But no, I don't think they can. I think to win that division, you're going to need 12 wins. Last year, the Saints got 13, so 12 wouldn't have even gotten it done. I do think they'll be better. I think the Gerald McCoy addition is one of the best additions anyone made all offseason.
Yes.
And unlike getting Antonio Brown or Odell Beckham or some of the other star players that changed teams, they didn't have to give up anything. They didn't have to go trade for him. They just went out and got Gerald McCoy, and it just cost you dollars, not personnel. So I love that addition. I know you love their defensive coordinator. McCaffrey was almost 1,000 last year, joining Roger Craig and Marshall Faulk as the only people to do it. He came like 125 yards short, I think, or maybe even less than that. And so I think that they are poised to get to double-digit wins, poised to win the division. Not unless the
poised to
Saints.
beat the
Yeah, I mean, the Saints would have to take a 3 or 4 win step backwards in order for that to happen.
Yes, I've had a number of conversations with Eric Washington. He's a defensive coordinator. I met with him when we were in Cleveland for the All-Star game. He was there with his family. We've become good friends. So, yes, their defensive personnel, he is very excited about it. Excited that they're going to get more back to what they used to do, where there'll be multiple fronts. Last couple years, they've been a 4-3 front. Look for them now, Dontari Poe, to be at the nose guard, for them to play a little more 34 with Gerald McCoy. And you mentioned some of those other free agents. Not only did they not have to pay for a guy as far as draft picks and draft capital, but you're talking about a natural fit, a born leader, a guy who brings great chemistry into the locker room. He's a grown man. He's very, very responsible, great locker room guy. And they believe, with their supporting cast, their defense and their linebackers, that they can free him up, and he should be able to play at a level that he couldn't even reach in Tampa because of the personnel. Big question marks have to be with their secondary. Can their young corners hold up? When Carolina's good, their corners have played good. But as far as DJ Moore, I do believe he is the franchise replacement as far as from Steve Smith. When they moved on from him a number of years ago, they've never had anyone that could be that number one guy. Him and Curtis Samuel, number one and number two. Watch how many times they give them the ball at the line of scrimmage or handoffs, because both of them have great open field running ability, and they're going to take advantage of that this year.
So how important is that wide receiving core going to be to the success of this team? 3 of the last 4 years, their number one target was either a running back or a tight end. It wasn't a wide receiver. Now you have two guys who really want to get in there and be a part of the offense. Ron Rivera said he wants them to be part of the offense. How important is that going to be?
I think that's a really interesting note, Jenna, and one I didn't know till you had mentioned to me before the show, that 3 of the last 4 years, the most targeted player was not a wide receiver. Now, Greg Olsen, when healthy, is a very, very good player, and we know that Christian McCaffrey is a dynamic dual threat. But I think that's been more out of necessity than it's what they've wanted to do. I think they've targeted the tight ends and running backs so much because they haven't found a replacement for Steve Smith. Steve Smith ain't been a Panther in a long time. And, I mean, he has since played for another team and retired and now does television. And they've been trying to replace him. Spent a first-round pick on Kelvin Benjamin. That didn't work. Spent a second-round pick on Curtis Samuel. Thus far, the returns have been minimal. Spent a first-round pick on DJ Moore. He is the most promising of all the guys they've tried.
Don't forget Funchess, too, has also went over to Indianapolis.
Absolutely. Devin Funchess, another guy they spent a high draft pick on who was good, but clearly not a number one in this league. If DJ Moore can be a legitimate number one, if he can take the success of last season, build on it, and become a guy that could get you 100 catches, that could get you 1,100 yards, then that gives this offense really a special dynamic that it has not had since Cam has matured into the quarterback that he is now.
The 2 backups, Jarius Wright, he was very, very effective, especially 2 seasons ago when Minnesota made that run. And watch out for Chris Hogan. He should fill that roster, give them someone who is a consistent route runner in the outside. But a lot of this development depends on these 2 young receivers. DJ Moore, can he be the number one threat? Ultimately, he should lead the team in targets. If he doesn't get that this year, I believe it's next year, because McCaffrey coming out of the slot is a nightmare for linebackers, safeties. He has a mismatch going into every game. No matter what game is on the schedule, I don't believe there's someone out there that can be able to cover him all over the field. He's a special wide receiver. So, yes, the wide receiving core, I believe, is one of the better, young and explosive, but their ability to be able to catch the ball and run with the ball, that's where they're special. So let's watch how Norv Turner, Scott Turner, their coordinator, quarterback coach, what they dial up with Cam with his new throwing motion earlier in the season to be able to take advantage of that skill set.
And you mentioned McCaffrey out of the backfield being a matchup nightmare. We've talked a lot about, and I know you've talked with Dusty, our statistician, a lot of teams this preseason going to more 2 tight ends, going to more heavier formations.
Absolutely.
The Panthers have a unique opportunity if they have Ian Thomas, who they spent a mid-round pick on last year at tight end, on the field with Greg Olsen, and McCaffrey out there, that if you go heavy against them, they can have, we know Olsen's deadly as a pass catcher. You just talked about McCaffrey. And if you don't match up with that personnel, McCaffrey, I think, has shown he can be a between-the-tackles runner. He can, maybe not 30 carries a game between the tackles, but that they can present some of those matchup issues that the Patriots presented with teams last season, with letting your defensive personnel dictate which offense they wanted to run.
Every season we have a handful of like dark horses, teams that they were just right there close, but we didn't give them enough attention in the offseason. Carolina fits that bill to me because I believe defensively they're going to be really nasty, and Cam being healthy, you know, that's nightmares for the rest of the league.
Well, that's it. That offense all predicated on how Cam Newton does indeed play and how he feels. All right, take a break. Coming up, can Carson Wentz carry the Eagles to the Super Bowl? That is next on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, we are going viral. So the Jets drafted Quinnen Williams 3rd overall this year, and they expect the former Alabama star to play a very big role. He was asked what it's like being around his new team. Take a listen.
Oh, it's dope. It's like playing Madden, but in Madden. So it's dope. It's dope to be. I love it. I love every last bit of it, man. Just a kid to come to work, man, and just people like, where get your money? And sometimes I forget, dog, I am getting paid. You know what I'm saying? Because in college, you working harder every day. Every day, and you just you're not getting paid. So I'm saying, so it's to be out here, you will forget sometimes it
don't hit you yet.
I'm getting paid millions of dollars to do this, so it's amazing.
You almost hope that he keeps that wide-eyed sort of breath of fresh air for the game.
He still has braces. He 3
young.
years, I mean, played as a true freshman, and so 3 years out of high school in the NFL. He brings up Madden in almost every interview he does. He got asked about his Madden player rating before. He said, man, it's not high enough. I got to go play and up my rating. He is, I mean, he's a kid and a monster on the field.
And one thing about Nick Saban, Alabama players, they protect him as far as interviews. So we haven't seen him speak a lot. I think that his overall youth, his enthusiasm, the braces and everything, this is all new to him. He's not acting. Like, he is country. Yeah. Like, that's
nice
country
kid.
Coming to the city. Absolutely. But he's got a great story. His mom passed away and everything. So I'm looking for big things from him.
If you remember, he was the young man who, before they played Oklahoma, was asked about Kyler Murray, and he started to answer. He's like, he's not all. And then he glanced over and saw Saban was there, and he's like, no, he's a great player, Like, and that was all we'd heard of him. He's awesome. He should be a really fun interview and an excellent addition for the New York Jets.
Oh, for sure. All right, time now for stories to start your morning.
I think he got paid a little something at Alabama.
Antonio Brown's helmet grievance was denied yesterday.
He's got a grievance if he wasn't getting paid at Bama like them other kids.
While I disagree with the arbitrator's decision, I'm working on getting back to full health and looking forward to rejoining my teammates. See, have the AB headaches just begun for the Raiders?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be something else. Oh, you can believe off the field he's going to cause a firestorm this season. And one of the reasons why I believe that, even if Gruden had put his foot down in this situation, which he didn't, he just empowered him. I fully support him. Oh, you know something? He almost burned his damn feet off. That wasn't his fault, all right? Whose fault was it? I mean, they've been using cryotherapy for years, and you know you have to have the body part covered that goes in. Whose fault was it, Coach? So, oh, yeah, it's the beginning. It's the beginning.
I just don't think people at that level of success, that level of wealth, that level of fame just all of a sudden change. Not unless they go through a traumatic life event, all of a sudden something changes for them that forces a change. Ain't nothing bad's happened to Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown keeps getting what he wants and keeps getting compensated more and more to get what he wants. So why would he change?
Yeah, like, he didn't even tell his kids he changed quarterbacks.
I know.
Kids still think he's in Pittsburgh.
That's true.
I mean, come on, what kind of dad is that, man? Tell him about Carr, bro. Obviously, he ain't been talking about Carr at home.
At all, because they were like, Derek Carter? He's like, it's just Carr. Dak Prescott reportedly turned down Dallas's $30 million per year offer, looking to become the highest paid quarterback in the $40 million per year range, though conflicting reports dispute this. CeCe, anything Dak can do to prove that he is worth all this money?
I think to most people, unless Dak leads the Cowboys to a Super Bowl, they'll never think that he's worth that money. Because if you look at the guys making 30 and above, unless they have Super Bowl experience, you're like, is a guy worth it? But this is the direction that the league is going. Patty Mahomes is probably going to be the first guy to get $40 million in the next 24 months. So get used to it, all right? If you're a leader, if you can start 3 years and win 32 games in the NFL, you should be able to get 30-something million. So go on and get your paper, Dak.
People keep saying the salary cap's going up, and that's true. But you don't have to spend that money on the quarterback. It's not that the quarterback salary cap's going up, the salary cap for the whole team. And money spent there is money that cannot be spent somewhere else. I think paying Dak $30 million a year will be proven out to be a mistake. Paying him anywhere close to 40 is just insanity. I'm very curious.
What would you sign Dak for, Nick? Right now,
4 years, $100 million, $25 million a year. And if you don't want to do that, then play for $2 million this year, and we'll talk about the franchise tag after this season.
Yeah, Nick's totally unreasonable.
Okay. Well, taking
all right, let's stay in the NFC East. Former Giant Phil Simms is an Eli Manning believer, saying the two-time Super Bowl champ is set to have a really good year. Nick, any chance Eli and the Giants have a bounce-back season?
No. I mean, they might not have the 6th pick of the draft again. They might claw their way up to 8th or 9th. But, no, they're not going to have a bounce-back season. Eli's not going to start 16 games, and this will be Eli's final year as the Giants starter. And we all know that, and I appreciate the preseason optimism, but that's all it is, preseason optimism. The Giants will be fighting with Washington to prevent finishing last in the NFC East.
Optimism is floating around the NFL, and I guess the Giants just got a piece of it. Because outside of their tight end, Ingram, who I really like, their running back, who is special, who else do they have? Their offensive line is still poor. It's not even mediocre, still a poor offensive line. Eli can throw for 4,000 because throwing the ball is easy. But wide receivers who are dependable, I believe it's going to be a tough year for Eli. A successful year for Eli would be starting all the games and not getting benched.
It's true. All right, when the Eagles gave Carson Wentz a $128 million extension this offseason, it appeared they were all in on their franchise quarterback. That despite the fact that Wentz has been plagued with injuries the last 2 seasons, and despite the fact that has had all of 0 playoff appearances. But Wentz pays no mind to all that, says expectations are still sky high heading into this, his 4th season.
It is what we expect around here. You know, it's the culture that we have. It's the expectations of this city and this fan base. Everybody knows that. But this culture of that coach sets first and then the leaders on this team, like we fully expect to be playing late into the season. And it starts right here in training camp. And obviously on the personal side, like you said, I mean, I'm chomping at the bit to get my opportunity to play into January and everything as well.
All right, CC, we talk about this as being one of the most complete teams in the league. What has to happen for the Eagles to make a Super Bowl run this year?
Well, a number of things. When they were on that Super Bowl run, their defense played outstanding at all levels, and the question mark being their secondary. Can Ronald Darby, can he hold it down at corner? Can this other young secondary, other members of this young secondary, can they make enough plays? Can they create enough turnovers? Because last year, not good at getting off the field on 3rd down, not good as far as giving up big plays. So, yes, we know their offense is stacked. We know that their skilled guys, I believe, are the best group that they've had since Carson's been there. Offensive line should be better than it's ever been. When you add Dillard, the 1st-round draft pick, to an already fortified offensive line where 3 out of 5 guys have been Pro Bowlers in a number of times. So, yes, they're stacked. Howie Roseman has done a tremendous job. But ultimately, it will be about Carson Wentz. Can he stay healthy? Not is he good? Is he effective? Is he a franchise quarterback? Those in the game understand that and realize that. But his inability to be healthy, now that Nick Foles is out of that franchise there in Jacksonville as their starting quarterback, that's the only question. So watching their overall health, I believe they will be good. I believe their offense will be more consistent, and I believe they'll be more physical. Watch for their 2nd-year tight end, Dallas Goedert, for them to use him more in 2 tight end sets. That's the trend going around the NFL now, a balanced formation. So watch for Philadelphia trying to utilize his overall ability after drafting him in the 2nd round last year.
How was Philly great 2 years ago? Excellent offensive line, excellent defensive line. Carson Wentz playing at an MVP level until he got hurt. That offensive line should be just as good. Lane Johnson's still great. Jason Kelsey's still great. We don't talk about right guard Brandon Brooks.
Yep.
He was a high draft pick in Houston. He's not great, but he's good. He's a well above average.
He's one of the better in the league at his position.
Absolutely right. Jason Peters, when he's been out there, has been excellent, but they know his window is closing, so they trade up to get Andre Dillard, as you mentioned. And maybe if Peters is healthy, maybe during the year they say, hey, the left guard, the one spot we're a little questionable about, maybe Dillard can play a little bit of that.
Yes.
And you could have elite talent at 5 offensive line positions. They lose Michael Bennett on the defensive line. So what do? Bart mentioned it earlier. They bring back Vinny Curry. They also draft Josh Sweat. And while you don't want to put too many expectations on a 4th-round pick as a rookie, he has such freaky athletic ability, and the combine measurables are off the charts. You feel like it's a spot pass rusher to go along with a great starting defensive line. Fletcher Cox one day might win a Defensive Player of the Year in this league, and we never talk about him. Ever talk about Fletcher Cox. Year in, year out, he's outstanding. Now, I do think they're going to need that D-line to be outstanding, because I do have questions at corner. You mentioned Darby. He blew out his knee in Week 10 last year. He's practicing now, but he's coming off an injury. And Sidney Jones has been a high 1st-round pick a couple years ago on. He dealt with an injury early in his career. He's been hit or miss to a degree. But one thing I want to add to Philly real quick, that when we evaluate them, we have to recognize the best GM in basketball, Daryl Morey, always says, don't look at the team I have to start the season.
Daryl Morey's not the best general manager in basketball. Stop. You threw that mess out there.
Okay.
Hey, go ahead.
The man
go ahead. Try to keep your train of thought.
The best GM in basketball, Daryl Morey, said, don't judge the roster I have at the beginning of the year. Judge the roster I have when we're heading to the end of the year, because you're going to make midseason moves. The NFL is not like that, except for in Philadelphia, where every year a man who's in the argument for best GM in football, Howie Roseman, he always makes, since he's come back into power, some addition. So if they do have issues at secondary, if they do have issues in linebacking core, they have not been hesitant to be bold to trade for a player during the season. It's how they got Jay Ajayi. They made midseason moves last year. So that's something you could see them doing again to supplement a need more so than almost any other team in the league.
That Josh Sweat pick from 2 years ago. Watch the 4th round. He's 2 years ago where he's drafted in the 4th round.
Oh, pardon.
Watch him develop this year, and watch their middle linebacker, Zach Brown, coming over from Washington. Last year, only Luke Kuechly and your boy Bobby Wagner ranked higher than him. So watch him. He should be a great addition to that defense.
And then let us see Carson Wentz get through a season
That's
healthy.
the prerequisite. He has to finish the year.
He has to finish the year. He hasn't done that in the
13
last
games,
2
13
seasons.
plus games. That's a success.
All right, take a break. Coming up, does Tom Brady still have enough in the tank for another Super Bowl run? That's next on First Things First.
Where's my trash bag?
Back here, Bart Scott talking Tom Brady, the 42-year-old quarterback set to become a free agent at the end of the season, even put his Boston area home on the market. All signs pointing to this perhaps being Tom's last season with the Patriots. But Brady said, hey, don't read into my house sale, and let's just focus right now on football.
If anything, the Patriots have taught me, it's, being in the present and not resting on what's happened in the past and certainly not worrying about what's happening in the future. I'm excited to get out there and play this year and do what I hope to do for this team, which is be a great leader, be a great example, be a great player. And then beyond that, it's not really, there's just too much work to be done between now and next year. And so there's no point really worrying about it. That's how I feel.
All right, it's become almost the elephant in the room, but what are expectations for now Tom Brady, Bart, at age 42?
They're what they always are. To win a Super Bowl, they'll win the division again. I think the Jets are about a year away. They're going to play well. They don't beat themselves. And Tom Brady, at this point, he's like a Jedi, right? He's doing more things more with his mind than he actually has to do with his body. But you do talk about how hard he works on his mechanics. He's a professional. Kind of reminds me of Dirk Nowitzki back in the day. I remember when they were playing the Heat, and they would say that, after the game, Dirk would go put up 200 shots with his shot coach. Because Tom Brady is so smart and he's still working hard and he still loves the game, I think he's going to play at a high level. I think this team is starting to make a transition where they're going to be more like the teams that Tom Brady had at the beginning of his career, now that he had at the end, because you see they're starting to load up on defense, bringing back Jamie Collins, putting in Michael Bennett so that they can win those ugly games. Last year, they were something totally different offensively where they ran, the ball the majority of the time and limited the possessions, and Tom only had to be great at the end of the year. At the end of the game, Sony Michel is somebody that I think is going to take a lot of pressure off his back. This year, I look forward to seeing Sony Michel in the passing game because he was coming off of that injury, from college, and now I think you're going to get more of him a more complete because it was kind of running back by committee. Whenever White was in, you knew it was a pass. Whenever any other guys were in, Burkhead, you knew it was going to be a run. Now I think they're going to keep you on your toes.
I like your breakdown.
A little better.
Of what
I'm off the trash bag.
A little bit better. You're trying to recover from the last segment. If you weren't with us, Bart was garbage in the last one.
Excellent.
But he's trying to recover.
Fresh from Miami.
But the thing about Tom is, and I love the fact in the soundbite, New England taught me how to not worry about next season, not trying to look back to what we did last season, but what we need to do now. Every team, every year in New England is totally different. I believe they're going to be a defensive team. The Jamie Collins name bringing up, I believe, is very important because what they did from week 16 on last year, they just mauled people. Offense and defense. They went back to an 80s, 90s style. We're going to run it. And defensively, we're going to get after your quarterback through stunts, blitzes. We just believe that we're better schemed up than you are. If they have Dante Hightower and Jamie Collins at middle linebacker, they got 500 pounds at middle linebacker. So they're going to take you out of your run, and they are great blitzers for linebackers because most of the running backs, 215 to 230. The linebacker gets a running start, they can run them straight over. So Belichick, to me, is going back to his old playbook. Tom knows that. They don't have a bunch of weapons on the outside. If they have to win a game, it's going to be by 4 corners. We're going to win it by special teams, playing smart football. We're just that much better at the X's and O's than teams. That's the way Tom tries to get back to his 4th straight Super Bowl, Nick.
And the Jamie Collins addition is a really interesting one because he was traded mid-season. During a season, he made an all-pro team because, according to reports out of New England, he was doing his own thing too much.
Freestyle.
Right. He was freelancing. He was not doing your job.
When he left, right?
Say it again?
Got that humble pie when he left.
Right. He traded him to Cleveland, and now he comes back to the Patriots. They obviously assume that he will continue doing the things he does well while not freelancing to try to do his own thing. But the point you mentioned about Brady, that the mental part of the game is easy for him now. He said something similar in this radio interview, which is a really good spot, which was He said the hard part for him is getting his body ready for the season. Because when he was asked about it, do you still want to play till you're 45? He said, yeah, that hasn't changed, but what is hard for me is getting ready physically. He said mentally, and it was kind of interesting, he said mentally, game's easy for me now. But for Brady physically, 3 straight Super Bowl appearances means 3 straight seasons with 3 extra games. 3 straight seasons where the season goes a month later than other people.
Where you have the shortest
3 straight
off
seasons
season.
where you have the shortest off season. And so Brady dealing with that is a big part of what you expect from him this season.
If you look how easy it was for him to get to the Super Bowl, once they transitioned in week number 16, all he was doing was handing the ball off. Yep. He threw a couple passes in the fourth quarter. Tom Brady was not great in their little stretch run. Edelman was spectacular in the Super Bowl, and Gronk was very good late. But it was their running game, their running backs, and their defense. And this is the type of team that they're going to have this year. Tom does make a great point back to what you're saying. It's not being in the locker room with the guys. It's not once you make it to the regular season. Because I remember the day when I went to the field in South Florida, it was 98 degrees and humidity was in the 90s. And I remember calling my ex-wife at the time and saying, I don't know how much longer I can do this. It's not running out there for 70,000. Right. It's not I'm getting ready for a game. I don't know how much longer. And I remember training that day, and I could feel my heartbeat and my pulse in my temple. And it felt like I was getting ready to pass out. And it's like, how much longer do you want to push this? And that becomes the battle, man, when you get to that point as far as season. Because with 30% turnaround in the league, look at the defense he had to face in the AFC Championship. Who wouldn't want to play against them a whole bunch of games in Kansas City?
First time this year, banana in the tailpipe, man.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so how successful can Tom Brady now be as a game manager if we see him sort of transitioning into that from the quarterback?
Well, we see Drew Brees. He's a game manager. That's what you do now when you get these quarterbacks at advanced age, is you got to take a little bit off their plate. Because what happens is, as a great player, you can always be great, but can you be consistently great? And they don't want to ask him to be great the entire game. They don't expect him to carry it the entire game. We look at John Elway. He wasn't great. They turned it around to Terrell Davis, let him do his thing. Then when we need you to be great in those special parts where you can use your mind,
at the end.
yeah, let's do that. Because if anything's going to break down first, and if it ever breaks down, it's going to be the end of him. It's going to be his lower body. If his lower body ever breaks down, he won't be able to be as accurate as he's been. And if he can continue to stay healthy and save himself, put him on that work management, that load management that you hear these other athletes on, then you only ask him to be great, at the end of the season.
Tom Brady, the reason why he should be a great game manager, because that's how he got started.
Yep.
He perfected game manager that they allowed him to start throwing the ball. He got so good, it's like, okay, wow, we need to give you more on your plate. He worked on his arm strength. He worked on his anticipation. So now, Tom Brady, to me, being the greatest quarterback, but also he's one of the few that's absent of ego. He doesn't have to throw the ball 50 times. Like Aaron Rodgers. If they don't throw it 50 times, Aaron Rodgers afterwards like, we should have thrown the ball more. So he would be the great game manager at this stage of his career because of all the things he's been taught there.
And it's really interesting just from a sports storyline perspective. If you look at Tom Brady's career almost as a circle that starts out great defense, running game, game manager. Halfway through 2011-ish was when he's setting, after Moss was there, set records, continued set records. Offense, Gronk, Hernandez, the whole nine. Not a great defense. Now we're back on year 20. And it's very similar stylistically to where it started. Be great in the spots. I'm sorry?
I can tell you got kids. You just seen Lion King.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Circle of life. Be very, be great in spots. Trust your defense. Trust your running game. And now he doesn't want it to end in year 20. He wants it to tick back over into year 22.
Right. That's why I wonder if he could do this and be this game manager, and if that's okay for Bill Belichick.
Man,
if they're defense and they are winning,
it's footprints, right? He's carried that team, that organization for the last 8 years. Now it's time that they carry him a little bit.
A little Bible verse
there. Stick around, Bart. Coming up, is Dak's next contract about to cripple the Cowboys? That's next on First.
You stepped out of the trash can.
I'm out.
That was professional life.
Okay.
Back here with Bart Scott, asking the multi-million-dollar question: how much does Dak Prescott actually want? He reportedly turned down Dallas's $30 million per year offer because Dak wants to become the highest-paid quarterback in the $40 million per year range, though conflicting reports dispute that. So, Bart, I heard the guffaw. Anything Dak can do to prove that he is worth all those millions of dollars, of shekels?
Well, this is something we're going to continue to go over until they get the deal done. Dak Prescott's got to realize where he is, and he's in a unique situation, right? Because he wasn't a first-round draft pick, so they don't own his rights for 5 years. But he has to understand that he should take some examples from some players that just was a little bit before him. I look at Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco came in, went to the playoffs 5 straight years, won a Super Bowl in 12, bet on himself, cashed in. When he cashed in, it cost him Ed Reed, Torrey Smith, and Quan Bolden. Now, when you look at
because they paid him.
Right, because they paid him, and you can retain the rights of those other players because you couldn't build a team around you. Well, then you look at what happened with Russell Wilson, right? Paid Russell Wilson. This is his second time, or it's his third contract. He lost Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, Michael Bennett. Right, and now he has to carry that team. Dak hasn't realized that. I don't believe that he's an elevator. I don't believe he can elevate the players around him and make them better and be able to carry a team by itself. So the best way to get paid is to take a little less money, let them keep the team around him, win a championship, and then double down and get more cash. Because when you look at a guy like Russell Wilson, who's similar to Dak, and the fact that he didn't come in as a first-round draft pick, it's not about how much you get paid. It's about how often you get paid. And if you start looking at a guy like Russell Wilson, he played 4 years, they paid him early. $87 million, right? Then he played that year out, just paid him again. He's the highest paid player at, $35 million.
And it's also a 4-year deal.
Right, it's a 4-year deal. Right now, Russell Wilson's at $230 million. His contract runs out when he's 34 years old. Guess what? Patty Mahomes going to raise it even more. He's going to get paid again. He's going to walk away with $300 million.
Okay.
So if I'm Dak, I'm like, let's get some more notches and some more accolades on your resume, more than a one playoff win, and continue to get paid, but continue to keep the good teammates around you until you can elevate yourself to a guy who can be a carrier, like a Rodgers, like a Brady, like a Manning, somebody who can carry a team. Because no matter what, when you get paid that type of money, when you set the market, you're going to lose some stars. And it's going to be more on your plate. And the first person they're going to point at when you start losing is you.
Bart, I think you bring up a great example. We only talk about Brady because of his unique relationship, not only with the Pats, but what his wife is making on the side there. So them as a 2-income family, it's very, very special. I love the point of Russell Wilson because he wasn't that mandatory 5-year contract and you could franchise him. So they could basically hold you for 7 years if you're a first-round pick. I think the example of how many times can I go back? Because Seattle, they were no glamour organization before Russ got there. I mean, Pete, I like Pete, got a lot of respect for him. He's got a lot of energy. But until you get to the Super Bowl and what they were able to do to create there, that's what makes Seattle a special place. That's why Nick is saying, hey, man, this team right here can win 10 games. I think that they're favorite in the West over the Rams. I'm like, wow. The reason why? He believes in that coach.
Yep.
He believes in the culture that they created. And ultimately, he believes in who they have under center. I think that's great. I have never heard anyone even present it that way, because we always go to the extreme of Tom Brady. To me, I'll give you this example. I got good friends who make their home in Dallas, and they are the elite of the Cowboys. And I'm talking about even going back to Roger Staubach, Tony Dorsett, and more so the guys who I grew up with, Emmett, Troy, and Michael Irvin. All of them live in Dallas. I just went over with Emmett this weekend, his construction business. He's got another business that he's birthing. He's in the commercial real estate business. I'm like, what are you not doing in Dallas? Dak needs to realize if he's able to bring that team a championship, there's so much more money in that area to be made for him being the quarterback with that star on his helmet. But I think Bart, this is the best example that I've heard on TV as far as look at Russell Wilson. He didn't have the mandatory 5-year deal, and look how he read up and how he read up again. That's a model that Dak should definitely take a look at.
Well, and for Russell, what he also had the confidence that because he had, when he re-upped the first time, he already had a Super Bowl championship, that he was going to consistently be able to play at this super high level and consistently get paid at this level. Where Dak, to me, is playing a very dangerous game is no matter what contract they agree to him with, he is going to take at least $25 million more of their salary cap dollars because he's making so little right now as a fourth-round pick. So the question is not will you lose a player, it's how many players will you lose once you pay him. And so if Dak risks not signing that deal because he wants 37 and they're offering him 30, that is a gamble that to me would be absolutely insane. And conversely, I think the Cowboys are taking a gamble as well by paying him before they have to.
Right.
Because I hate the franchise tag. I wish it didn't exist, but it does.
Yeah.
And if it does, you have to recognize its utility. And its utility is for a player you think you want to pay, but you're not certain about. And so it's not like he's facing the franchise tag this season. He's under contract this season, but you have the franchise tag as an escape hatch if after the season you can't get a deal done. Because when you're looking at the NFC, just throw Breeze out because I don't think Breeze will be playing in 3 years. If we try to project forward in the conference, forget the AFC, just the conference, who in the NFC are we confident right now Dak Prescott's going to be better than? Not Rodgers, Russell, or Matt Ryan. Throw them out. The tier that you could make an argument for he would be in. Carson Wentz, Cam Newton, Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford, Jared Goff. I think Bart would have him beneath all of those guys except for maybe one. Then there's the young crop that we don't yet know about. Kyler Murray, the two rookies in the NFC East, Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins. Mitch Trubisky was the number 2 pick.
Yes.
And there's Jimmy Garoppolo, who I don't even know where to put him because he's not young, but he hasn't played much. I just listed 13 names. The Cowboys could find themselves in a position where they agree to 4 years, $130 million for Dak Prescott, and he's the 11th best quarterback in their conference. And so both sides here are playing a dangerous game. The Cowboys on betting on Dak, and Dak may be betting too much on himself.
I heard you earlier, Chris, and you were talking about 45 wins, pay the man his money. Well, guess what?
32 wins.
Well, okay, Andy Dalton won 50 in his first 5, and he took a 6-year, $96 million deal, which basically was a year-to-year deal. So I think if Dak understands, because you don't want to be the one who pushed Zeke out and he goes somewhere else and be great, or you the guy when you lose Byron Jones and he goes out and be great. You look at Jalen Smith's going to be up in a year. I think Travis Frederick is going to be up. So all those people that make you great and you the reason that they left, just like when Anquan Bolden left, Ed Reed left, people start pointing at Flacco. This guy makes too much money. He's not living up because if you look at the numbers, Andy Dalton, 33, 36, 42, 3,300 yards passing. Those are the same numbers as Dak Prescott. See, but he wants to put himself with the elite, but his numbers aren't elite. He hasn't performed on the biggest stages. One playoff win, that doesn't get it done. So make sure that you can continue to win, build your resume, and when you're able to carry a team, you do like Russell Wilson, you cash in the big chips, and you lose all the players that helped you become great.
But you say Jerry's going to get a deal done with him. He's not going to let him wait the season out.
But just think, right? If they don't pay him this year, they got 3 great quarterbacks coming out in the draft. Teddy Bridgewater's still out there, and you're going to have a ton of cap
Winston
space.
and Mariota are going to be free agents, too. They're going to
All
have
right,
some options.
Bart, thanks so much for joining us.
I'm out the trash bag.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Chris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.